Hello everyone. In this video tutorial, I'm going to cover the microservices, like how we can make our applications to use API Gateway. But before of that, there will be two microservices I will be creating here as department microservices and then user microservices. So it will demonstrate like how it will be communicated to each other. And the second portion will be like Spring Cloud, Netflix, Eureka based service registry, how we can register our microservices to the service registry, and then I will let you know that like how that Spring Cloud API Gateway should be work. So like if you see that the first thing is like how that RESTful communications can be happen, means the communication can be happen to the two of the microservices. So there is the two ways, synchronous and asynchronous. So synchronous communication is like if you send the request, so you need to wait for your response from the service, and it may be possible through the HTTP or HTTPS, that is the synchronous communications. For example, microservices one is sending the request, so once the microservices 2 should not be send the request, microservices 1 should be wait. But in the synchronous communications, so for example in the synchronous communication is like REST template, web client, or a Spring Cloud OpenFin library. There is the lots of way that you can make your synchronous communications. Asynchronous communication is which you send the request and you do not need to wait for your response. Means continuously you can send the request, but yeah, you do not need to wait for your response for the microservices. So for example, like there is the multiple messages broker which you can use like RabbitMQ or Apache Kafka, which makes your communications asynchronously. Okay, so let's create your applications and then okay, so if you see means how you can create your Spring Boot application. So there is the way like you can just from the IDE you can just generate your Spring Boot application, or there is the Spring built initializers tool which you know that like it can be used here. So I'm going to create my application. So you need to put some of the details here like group, which is your company name or whatever you want. So com.java talent here I'm using. Artifact is the way project name, like artifact the department service and department service name I am giving. Descriptions you can give it your Spring Boot applications for department service like that, and this is the root package. So I'm just giving that com.java talent as root package, and there should be I will create the multiple more packages. These are the dependency which I am going to use. This application I am using as a Spring Web, a Spring Data JPA, MySQL driver, and Lombok. These are the four dependency which I am using for the both the applications like department service or either it will be user service. So once you will generate your applications, you can see that like there is the it will be downloadable zip it will create, and you need to just extract it and put it into your working directory. And once you open your directory, there should not be anything apart from your main class, main package, and then application.property. Means architecture will be ready. You need to create your packages here. So for example, repo, entity, service, and controller. These are the four packages I have created for my use cases. So if you see that pom.xml file, so you know that like whatever the dependency we have added data JPA, Spring Boot Web, MySQL for MySQL connection, and then Lombok API. These are the four dependency which we have added. Leave it about this part I will let you know like how we can register our microservices to the service registry. Then in that case we will enable this dependency. Now let's go to the entity class. So entity class is that like departments I just wanted to create. So here it is entity and then table name. If you want to make your table name should be differ than your class name, so you need to give it as a parameter name, and you can pass the value whatever you want for that table. These are all the annotations that which we have to use, like no argument constructor and all argument setter and getter, because this some of the times we have to set that all the departments and all the things. That's why these are the ID primary key you need to specify for your ID, and then this is the generations type what you want for that ID. So in that case I'm just not going to pass that ID from my request. It will be created automatically from the database backend. Hibernate it will create your department name, department address, and department code. These are the details which you have to pass. Now next thing is like repo interface that you have to create. So for us, like department repository I am creating here as the interface, which is extending the JPA repository, and then department is like class, entity class, and this is the long, which is the primary ID of type. Now I have to create the service layer. So service layer department service, here I am creating that department service interface, and then the further implementation will be created for this service. There's the two method I am using, that save department and then get departments by ID. Department service IMPL, this is the implementation class for that. If you see that we have to annotate this as the service at the service layer, so that Spring Boot Spring Boot itself, it will create the bin for your service class, and that it will this will be a component, make the component, but you know that like there should be the differentiation between the service layer, repo layer, and then all the controller layer, that that will be distinguished between that, which annotations you have to preferably use. This is the SL4J for the logging purpose, because here I'm not using any log, but yeah, if you are using that log in your application, so you must use this logging annotations. This is the SL4J. You know that like this is the department repository. Here I'm using the all our constructor, so it will be constructor based parameter, which I am injection I am using here, constructor based injection of the Spring framework. So this is the overriding method, that repository method I am calling here, and then save department and then get departments, means finding the department by ID. Then the controller layer is like department controller. So this is the request mapping. This is the REST controller which you have to create for the controller API. Like this is my REST controller class, and this is the API request mapping API. If you know that like API departments, like this is the URL, and this is the post mapping. I'm not using any specific endpoint here. And if you know that like request body department request body I'm sending, and then a status I'm giving as created, because you know that like 201 is the created status code here. Once it will be called this save department from the service layer, and then if it has been successfully created, then it will return this. Finding the ID by using that get mapping, and then path variable you are using here for that ID. And yeah, these are all the tests. And then you know that like as we are using the MySQL, so MySQL related details we have to configure here. So this is a Spring Boot application name, spring application.name department service. Leave about this portion, I will let you know. This is the port 8081, and this is related to the database configuration, which is MySQL. This is the instance name, Java Talent. Whatever the instance you have, you can just pass it here. And driver class name, username and password, dilate, and then these are all the details. Now let's run the application. So for example, if you see here, for my case, there should not be any department. Now if you run this application, so it will create the table departments, because we have given as departments here. And then we will go ahead and run the application. See, it is running create table departments with that information, and then my application is running on 8081 port. Now let's see post department. This is the API 8081 API departments, and these are the department name, ID, IT, department address, NDLS, department code D01. If you send the request, see, status is created, and then the response, the same department's response which we are getting. Now if you see the database, let's see the database here. See, now the database is up and running with the information that we have given. Fine. So this is the departments. If you run the get departments API, which is API slash departments and slash departments ID, that is 1, you must get the request and response as a status code as okay. Now next one is like user service, and if you see that user service is communicating to the department, because I will let you know that same configurations which you have to use for your here, just you can replace department with user, nothing else, user service. And my root package is com.java talent. So make sure that sometimes if you are creating here, the package name will be different after this root package, and when you are running your application should be running fine, must but there should not be any table will be created or something like that. So do not wonder, sometime it happen, because your root package should be at the top, means all the packages, whatever the package you are creating here like this, that should be under that under that umbrella, under your root package, means your main applications class, this class should be at the top of your all the packages. And the same dependency, Spring Web, Spring Data JPA, MySQL Server, and then Lombok. It will be same only. Once you generate, it will create your package. You just need to extract it and then fine. So once you extract, your simple application will be ready without this packages with this class and then application properties file and all other. So if you see the pom.xml file, as we have used this data JPA, web, and then MySQL and Lombok. These are all the 4 dependency. Leave for this portion. I do not want to show here. Oh, this is repeated at which version we have used. I'm not deleting that because there is a lots of Go and Pro I have used to make our application running, because you know that there is a lots of dependency problem. So fine. So let it be this one. You should be taking care next. So yep. Now yeah, you have to configure your username and password and all the details for your MySQL. Same configuration you can just copy paste over here, and the port is 8082 this time, and the service name is user service. Leave this portion. This portion I have commented here because I will let you know that later. So now go one by one. Entity class, which is users. So table will be users, and its strategy is like ID and then first name, last name, column. Email ID I'm going to take as the unique. There should not be any duplicate email. So null label is false and unique is true. This is the configurations I'm using for this column. And department ID, because that department I will be interlinking for this user, which department this user should be belonging. There is the response which I have to capture. So if you see that department DTO, so this is the DTO I am just going to use, and that then I will convert your accordingly response. Department DTO same ID, department name, address code what I have used, and response DTO complete response what I am returning from this user interface, this user microservices, which is department DTO and then user DTO, two different DTO. User DTO is like this. User DTO has the ID, first name, last name, and email what I have created. Repo, if you see that user repo is extending that JPA repository, and then the user is the class which I am going to use, and then the type of that class primary value is long. Now I have the service layer, so service interface which is user service, and then if you see that the user service is having the two method, save user and get user, same thing like departments what I have done here, and get user is responding as response DTU and save user will be responding as user. This is the implementation class, you know that like at that service annotations which we have to use to annotate my service layer class, and this is the user repository, and repository call I have to make from the database, and then REST template I am using because I am just communicating to through this user service to the department service. That's why I am using this REST template, because further if you know that like there will be some enhancement done by the Spring Boot people, and then further I am using means we do not need to use REST template. In place of it we have to use the web client or web flux. So if you see that the save users repository dot save method, and then when I'm going to get that user, along with that user I need to get the user details from the departments related to that department. So if you see that response DTO, user is calling that find by get, means if user is there, then user DTO map to that user DTO, there is the map to user. So see, this is the map to user, like I need to pass that user specific, and then from that user DTO I need to set that ID, first name, whatever I'm getting from the mapper. And then response entity of that department DTO, response entity, there is a REST template call I'm calling here, REST get for entity, and this is my URL for that API departments, which is departments one, and this is the localhost 8081, you know that like, and then I have to pass that user department dot add ID and then department DTO dot class. It will respond my department DTO. This is the message which I am passing here, like what is the status code, and this is the response. Perfect. Now in the controller layer, same thing like API users, one is post mapping and one is get mapping. So let me run this application. So my department service is already up and running. Now let's run this application. So it will run on port 8082, and let's see what the response will be getting here. Okay, see, create user table. So user table is created. They are dropping the index because there should be any index for that table. So and then construct it is making as email, you know that, because we are just creating the index based, and then constant we are making for the unique value as email. So now if you see our users, so first name Java, last name talent, email is javatalent@gmail.com, department ID is 1. If you hit this endpoint 8082 API users, see a status is created, and then that details what we have sent it we are getting over. Now there should be users table, refresh it, select, see, one department ID, one ID, and then email, first name, last name. Fine. From the get users, you can just see users department, sorry, user ID is 1. Let's hit department, what the response which you have created, we have created, correct? So if you see that like department, one object which is different, and then user is different object which we have created as the DTO. So these are all the details that what we are expecting from this user service. So this is the synchronous communications. Once I will send the request, I need to wait for the response, and then it will be go and create the response for you. Now second portion of the application of this video is, now I have to register my applications, both the applications, to the service registry. So there is the Spring Cloud Netflix Eureka based service registry which we have to create, and then we have to register our service to that service registry. So to create the service registry applications, like what is the discovery service? So basically the service registry and discovery play an important role, because like we mostly run the multiple instances of the microservices, but we do not need to we do not need to remember that hard coding the things like what is the host name, what is the port name for our other microservices. So for example, like here we are talking through the user microservices to the department microservices. So we need to remember the department microservices host name and all the details. But this is the communications through service registry. If we are registering our both the API to them, so from there itself it will be easy to capture the request, and it will be create your details. So to create your applications for Eureka server, let me give the example of it. So for example, from this Spring Initializer tool, if you are creating your applications, what are the details you need to pass here? So first thing is like you need to change your name, like here artifact name, which is nothing but service registry, because now I am going to create the service registry API, so that my application will be registered service registry. Fine. And a Spring Boot application for service registry, here I am giving as package as root package as com.java talent. Fine. Now what dependency I have to use? Just remove all the dependency because it was the last time I have used. Now I have to use Eureka server. Fine. Because now I have to use that Spring Cloud Discovery, here I am creating. So Eureka server, make sure that this is the server. Just generate this project, import it, unzip it, and then put it into your working directory, service registry. For me, it has already been opened here. So let me open this application. So you see that like it has been already created. Nothing else. What I have added here, I will let you know. I have added these details. So one is like I am adding on top of that Spring Boot application annotation. I have added that at the rate enable Eureka server, because I want to make this application as Eureka server. That's why I am using this annotations. That's it. Application that properties is like Spring application name. What is this properties? Application name is service registry. Port is 8761. This is defaultly making for the service registry for everyone, but if you want you can change it, nothing problem. Now this is the two configurations: Eureka client register with Eureka false, and client fetch registry false. These are the two configurations. By default, server is also Eureka client and needs at least one of the service URL to locate up here, and then we are going to have a single Eureka server node. So these are the main properties that we have to write over here. If you see the pom.xml file, see nothing else, starter parent, and then what are the dependencies? See, Eureka server, and this is the dependency management for that cloud, nothing else. So if you run this application, see, run your application, this is service registry application, and open your local host, what it has, what is the port you have given, which is 8761. See, standard commands active, and then there's a lots of things. See, this is the adding the new peer nodes, and this is the replica node URL which we have to use from our microservices, whatever the microservices we want to host over here. And this region register, see, and service registry, this is the name of this microservices, and it is running under 8761. So now if you hit this endpoint localhost 8761, see, all the details from this service registry is coming, system status, this one, no instance is available. This is where this is the place where we have to look into, and this is the replicas that what we have to use from our microservices to register to this register service register basically. So if you see here, there is no any instance of the microservices which has been registered over to the to this Eureka server. Fine. So how we can register our microservices to make available for the service registry from this Eureka server? Fine. That is the next question. So to registering the department service or the user microservice, that what we have created earlier, there is the step that we have to follow. Let's begin. So from this department service, there is the another dependency which we have to add, which is nothing but to make your application as a Spring Cloud Netflix Eureka client application. So this is the annotations, this is the dependency which you have to add. Fine. So there is a lots of dependency packages from this version. So make sure that whatever the version it will be suitable, because I have also investigated multiple times. So that's it is coming here. So this dependency is useful and it is working fine. Make sure on note of it. Okay. So once you add this dependency, there should be some vulnerability it is finding. So let it be. Now you need to go to your main class and see, and all thing is fine, and you need to come here to your application properties. One more instance we have to give as Eureka instance server, which is the default zone. Eureka instance client server URL, service URL, default zone. What is the default zone of your service? So if you see there, it has been given as register replicas. This is the replicas what we have to use there. Okay, so that our application will be registered to this particular service URL. Fine. Let's restart our application, because the POM in the POM file we have added the dependency. Sorry. So let's run this application and see if it has been registered to that register service registry basically. So let me stop because I have ran into the debug mode. Now let's run into the and you must see the some log here. Once it will register, you must see some of the logs to registering that API. See, somewhere you can find discovery client. Okay, so see, registering application department service, because this is our department service, Eureka with the status up, and discovery client department service. Now it is registering service here, and fine. At the last, see, this application has been started, and then after that, if you see that discovery client department service, this department service is registered. Registration status is 204, getting all the instances and all. And if you see the log of service registry, see, till here we were last time at the last time. Now see, registered instance is department service from this portion, and this is the URL, it has been registered. Now if you go to that, see, if you refresh this, there should be some application, no instance is available, but if you refresh this page, there should be department service will be available here. See, now our department service is available here. So from here only you can go to the actuator info endpoint. We have not given, that's why this info endpoint is not working. But if you see that our API info, whatever we have given, API department and one, so most probably you will be able to get your response here. Fine. So our one application has been registered. Let's go to the second one, user one, and do the same thing. Come to the POM XML. You need to add this dependency. Make sure the version suitable for us, which one it has. So make sure that the 3.3.3 version which I am using for this one, and 4.0.0, and this is 413. Now it is fine, and come to the properties file, add this properties instance one, and then run it. So now this service also will be registered to the service registry. In that case, then we will be able to see both the services to the service registry. See, updating port, and then discovery client, this is your service registration status 204. Yeah, the service is being registered. Now open this URL and refresh. See, department service and user service, both the service has been registered, and that's why we are able to see both the services over here. And if you open the console of service registry, earlier our department service has been registered, now user service has been registered with 8082, and earlier one is 8081. Till here we have created two microservices. We have registered two microservices to the service registry. Looks good. Now next step is there is the Spring Cloud API Gateway. So what is the purpose of this gateway? It has the three parts. Like API Gateway is the library which is building an API on top of the Spring Web Flux, because its aim is to simple and find the effective way to trap the APIs, like how many APIs we have created, like cross-cutting methodology it has to use. From this API gateway, it will be separated where the request should go to the user service, department service, or like payment service, or whatever service which we have created. So the route is like these are the building blocks of the application. So it will demonstrate the route forward where we needs to go. Predicate, these are the set of criteria, means there is some condition what we have to fulfill. For example, a path predicate will be forward to the request from the which URL. Filters, like some of the filtrations we have to do. For example, there is some filter logic I have to write. These are the things that which we can do here. So for that that's things, let's create one more application which is our API gateway. Okay. So now if you go to the same thing like Spring Lasers tool, and here in place of service registry, I'm going to use my API gateway one. API gateway. And this is our application for API gateway, nothing else. Package, root package, this one. What are the dependency I have to use? I have to use that actuator, Eureka discovery client, same, because I need to make this application as client also. And then other one is, which is most important, gateway, Spring Cloud routing. This is the applications which we have to create. See, generate. Actually, I'm already having that application. Unzip it and make into your working directory. Now go to that API. See, this API is this one, and what are the dependency we have added? We have added actuator, gateway, Eureka client. These are the three dependency which we have added, correct? Okay. So now let's make our application dot properties. So these are the properties that which you want to add into your applications. So let's see what are the details which you have to configure. So first one is like, what is the application name? Our application name is API Gateway, port 9191. This is the default zone URL that what we have used for other applications. The same thing which we have given here. Management endpoints, like if you have to expose or something or include something like that, so you can make it happen. Configuring the API gateway routes with the Spring Cloud Gateway, means how we can make that happen, which API it should be trapped, which API should be requested. So for example, if you see here, now you might be wondering that API gateway no host name or IP port name of the microservices, correct? So how it will know? So from here it will know based on the username and then based on the name which we have to give here. So when a client sends a request to the API gateway, it will discover the correct service IP and the port using the service registry. It will go to the service registry this service registry, check what the service registry, which service has been registered to which IP and port. It will find it out here, and then it will go to the communicate to particular route. Let's configure routes using the property. So this is the configurations which we are going to use. User service, department service, and department service is this one, and one is path API gateway, and one is for message or something else, for example. So we are the properties that we have set for. So ID is, this is the just identification for the routes. URI, this is the URI. So here we can use either the local host, for example, like local host. Let me write. So URI http colon localhost colon 8081, which is our department service. So it is 8082. So localhost 8082 or this one. Either you can use this one or either you can use this one. Any one of that. Okay. So for example, let it be first one. So LB slash user. So here department, but if we need to use the inbuilt load balance, so this is the load balancer which we are using here, Eureka server. We should be use that load balancer. Then it will be go to the IP registry, take the request flow, go to that service registry, find out the destination, and that it will be go. Now the predicates here is that we can use the multiple paths, like this path and this path, this one. This is the predicates. So which is like which of the specific path which we have to use, like API users, the after that whatever it will be, API departments, after that whatever it will be. Okay. So now run all the services. So this service we have to run. Our all other services is running. Now we are running this one, and you must see that this service also will be registered to the service registry, this API gateway. So let's run this application. The port is 9191. Okay, so if you see somewhere, this one also will be registered. See, and now if you open that, okay, see API gateway is also registered. Info is nothing we have given. Actuator endpoint, department service, user service. All three services given here. Now test the API. So for example, if you want to test that API, note that our API is using 9191 to call the department API, okay? Because 9191 is our API gateway. So now the thing is we are using this one. Let me create the another endpoint to get the departments. Duplicate from the API gateway. Okay, fine. So now here I am using 9191. Fine. API departments 1. From the API gateway I am hitting this departments endpoint. See, it is not finding. 1 second. And 1 second. It should go there. And from here also it should go. 9191 API users 1. See, okay. Let me see our all API is running. Fine. Fine. Our API is 8081. One second. It should redirect. Let me see the log. Okay, 1 second. Might be load balancer issue. So we can do one thing. Let make here 80. 81 and this one is commented. Fine. Not this one. Load balancer one. Oh, duplicate property. Why? Where we have given that? Okay. This one should be 1. Let me run this one from this API gateway with the name or URL. It should go there. Okay. So let's see. We are good from our API gateway. API gateway is updating this one. API gateway service registry 9191 up. So we have that now. Get departments using this one. API departments 1. It is not finding here. It is reaching there. Okay, so 1 second. Might be what happening is, see if data is there or not. Departments data is there. Users data is there. Fine. So what is the problem? So basically the thing is like, this is our API one. Okay, gateway URL, and this is our, oh, not this one. So basically this, the thing is like, if you hit this endpoint like uh, localhost 9191 and API departments and users. Okay, it should go to your user and departments. This is what I was just thinking. So okay, somewhere something is missing, so make sure that it should work. Yeah, but at least this is the idea behind the scene, how we can do that API gateway things. And you can just register your service here. So all the services has been registered over here. And if you see, user service is 8082 and this one is 9191. 1 second. 808. We are good so far. Okay, somewhere the something is missing. So but yeah, the thing is the behind the scene the logic is the same. This is the way that what we have to do. Okay. Yep. Thanks for your time. Yep. Subscribe my channel and like my video.